This is Comic Shenanigans, episode 1114, Book of the Month Club, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 1-8 by Kyle Higgins.
Ain't no stopping them shenanigans. Love getting into shenanigans. All up in them shenanigans. 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 Shenanigans.
Welcome to the Comic Shenanigans podcast. This is episode 1114. It's a Book of the Month Club, this time talking about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 1-8. I'm Adam Chapman, your host. I'm joined by my co-host, Paul Skorez. Paul, I'm going to give you the floor because this is actually more you than it is me, which is exciting for me because I got to read something I've never read before. I'm not the guy in the seat who knows stuff, so tell us about what we're reading today.
Okay, well, the first question I have for you, Adam, do you know what time it is?
It's Morphin time!
Morphin time! Yeah!
Oh my god. So people can't see that you just showed, like, the Morphin tech?
The Morpher.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Somewhere Nate is enjoying this way too much. He's just laughing his ass off already. He's going to see this in his feed. I'm going to share this to him on Saturday, and he's going to be like, what is this? Can't wait to... Because he doesn't know this is happening. So.
Oh, okay. Nice. So Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so it has had a few forms of comics pre this Boom Studios era, so to speak. All of it terrible. You know, all of it made for little kiddie stuff, and, you know, I always would grab the occasional issue here and there, and the art's horrible. It's you know, just trying to copy the show in some instances, so it's never ever been good. So when Boom launched this series, there's a lot of hype and circumstance around it. Kyle Higgins, the writer, taking the reins of the book right off the hop, and I think he was on the back nine of Nightwing at the time. New 52 is when this came out, somewhere around there.
I think that makes sense, yeah.
Right? Or somewhere within Nightwing, at least for sure. And that's kind of where I was familiar with Comic. I was kind of paying attention to that Nightwing run at the time as well. So yeah, okay, so you got like a legit writer on this. The art looked really solid. You know, I don't, it's not what reflected in these first 8 issues, but, you know, eventually I get to meet Dan Mora. Later on, he does a bunch of covers and a few interiors, especially when Go Power Rangers, kind of the secondary book in the line, launches. Dan Mora does a lot of art in that one. So yeah, I remember kind of being super jacked for actually a good quality Power Rangers book, and I remember picking this up, like reading at the time, then buying the trades afterwards, and then converting to hardcovers post Shattered Grid, which kind of like big game at the very least on the book. So, and I remember this feeling like kind of a breath of fresh air from what was kind of the stagnant Marvel DC stuff at the time, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, and being like, I'm a lifelong Power Ranger fan. You know, I was a fan of it right from the get-go when the series launched back in 1993. Obviously, it's had its peaks and valleys. It's unfortunately kind of almost a dead brand in current state. Like, as of like right now, it's not a very healthy brand right now. It's kind of lost. Hasbro dropped the ball since gaining the rights of it. There's really no current show happening right now. It lasted 40 years nonstop, good or bad or ugly, and yeah, it just kind of halted very suddenly because you know, for a while there they would always mirror the Japanese Super Sentai stuff, and that was like annual Boom 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 they would copy, and then it hit a point where like they skipped a year somewhere in there, and then because the Japanese stuff started getting really wacky, and I think the North American guys had a really hard time figuring out, man, how do we write this? Like it's like there's one that was themed on trains, you know, like, oh my god, I don't think we can make this series work, right? So they would kind of skip around and wait till another dinosaur theme came around, this and that. So you know, the brand's in a tough spot right now, but there is some signs of maybe Disney Plus resurging it with a series. In my humble opinion, I think they really got to go animation at the end of the day. I think that way you can bring back a lot of the old talent to be the voice actors, because they did a lot of that being pretty much, you know, voiceover ADR over the Japanese footage anyways in the suits. You know, and that way, any of the actors who are older, maybe kind of out of shape these days, you know, could reprise their roles and do the thing. And at one point, actually, Kyle, so for his Shattered Grid event, Kyle was working with David Just Frank, was Tommy Oliver, very, like the Green Ranger, White Ranger, right, super popular. And they did actually a live action like trailer for it, and that was kind of a pilot to see what the interest in it would be to maybe make some type of movie. So when I saw him, he autographed my Volume 1 at Fan Expo years and years ago. He said that was on the table. They were going to make this movie, and whether it was based on Shattered Grid or not, but he was going to be a part of making kind of a film. And then that's when the sale from like Saban to Hasbro happened, and all just fell apart. So there's a brief stint of Power Ranger history for you. But these books, though, like and a great way to have. The best way to put it is Ultimate Power Rangers, right? They come up, they modernize it a bit. You know, like Bulk and Skull are still kind of they're not quite the stupid slapstick bullies. They're like these social media guys who, you know, are kind of ditzy, but, you know, they mean well, you know. Bulk and Skull eventually evolve into that in the series, but off the hop in these books, you know, they kind of come with that, right? Because for you, I think you were part of the average mass of people. Like, I followed Power Rangers for 40 years. You probably stopped mid-Mighty Morphin Power Rangers between seasons 1 and 3 at some point. Some people stuck around for Zeo, but definitely Turbo was the biggest drop of fandom, because that's when they made the biggest change to the roster. Like, everyone you had known growing up, season after season after season, was like wiped out entirely, like midway through Turbo. And even I stopped. I got, okay, and Turbo was a tough season because in Japan, it was a season based on comedy. It was very slapsticky, very fun, ha-ha, and then they had a lot of trouble adapting it, and it didn't quite land with a lot of fans. Like, there's literally a scene, and they joke about it later in a different episode, about they get cooked in a giant pizza in a microwave, right? And it's like, Power Rangers don't being campy, over the top, and ridiculous, but that was almost like one step too far. Like, jump on the shark entirely. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no, I just can't anymore. But then, you know, by total happenstance, I happened to flip on, I'm just curious, what's going on with Power Rangers right now? And it was the end of Turbo and launching the Power Rangers in Space, which was the following season, and I fell in love back again, because Power Rangers in Space is my favorite version of the series, hands down, my favorite season. And then you had some other gems like Time Force and SPD and various other themes. When Disney had it for a while, they did some kind of cool stuff with the franchise, and yeah, very much a roller coaster experience, for sure. But it's always Mighty Morphin, right? And Mighty Morphin always sells because everyone's familiar with Mighty Morphin, right? You put the toys on the shelf. Like, this was the big boom of the brand, of the era. You know, yes, there have been other series, but if you put a Mighty Morphin figure next to a Time Force,
We lost Paul. We're going to get Paul back. Stick with us as we have technical difficulties.
don't need your stuff, right? It's the same kind of tropes in that sense of it all. But even if you I'd love to, but it's got to be somehow adjacent to Mighty Morphin, right? So they took their shot with this book, and they did some really cool stuff because of the ultimate version of it. They were able to make it, like, if you watch the show at all, you can see some of the beats, right? And you see, and you start off in the thick of the end of the Green Ranger saga, which is a bold choice, right? If you're someone who has zero context to anything, starting off there is interesting, right? Because you're missing a whole lot of context as you hop into it, right? So for someone like you, Adam, who, like, you're familiar enough with the brand, maybe you remember from back in the 90s, probably haven't watched an episode since, right? What was your first kind of launching point as you flipped the page to issue 1?
It's interesting. So I think starting in the Green Ranger saga felt very familiar. So I think that was a good choice because that's probably the best memories I have of the show, because I don't think they ever did anything better than that, right? So, like, I remember watching it when I was a kid. I would have been, like, 10, and so I only watched, I don't know, you said it was, 3 seasons or so? Or how many seasons was the original?
3 seasons of Mighty Morphin.
So, I definitely never saw any of the movies, so I missed the whole, like, I guess Tommy becoming a White Ranger. I knew of that from afar, but didn't understand it. And I remember I used to get Disney Adventures magazine, and they'd have like cover stories, and I'd be like, I don't know what this is anymore. Like, so I watched it on TV. I remember seeing the Green Ranger saga. I remember my parents not liking that I was watching Power Rangers because a lot of parent groups were like, it's too violent, which it's kind of hilarious to hear that now. Imagine the things that my kids watch now, and if I put on Power Rangers, they'd be like, there's no violence. What's going on? Like, but at the time, very different. So parents were definitely felt differently. I think I had one or two of the toys, but I liked it. But then I don't know. I never really stuck with it. I never watched the movies. I obviously liked the designs, but I never really paid that much attention to any of it. I remember watching a lot of things on Fox Kids, and they'd be like, "Oh, there's Power Rangers this coming," and I'm like, what is that? Like, it's interesting because you're talking about like space and turbo and all this stuff. I remember it from afar and being like, what are these weird designs? All the costumes are different. Like, it never made me want to check it out, though. It always kind of made me like, well, I liked it back then, but I think it's good where it is. And that's so I never really had the bug to kind of check it out. I knew that you were a big fan, but I was just never quite on my horizon. I watched the not great movie they did, 7-8 years ago, which I actually thought wasn't awful. I thought it wasn't a bad. It was a little extra dark. It wasn't fun. It was trying to be too serious, but
that's the problem.
But I did not like it. I thought it was interesting enough. I liked the leads, and I thought this was an interesting read of these 8 issues because I liked some of the character dynamics, but at times I wish it was almost trying to be so plot heavy. I wanted it to be more character heavy because I wanted to have a sense of who they were better, and I felt like they would give you some tantalizing glimpses of who these characters were. There's the issue with the Black Ranger being tempted by Rita. That's really interesting. Yeah. I really like that perspective and what it means for how he even views Tommy. I thought that was really cool. I wanted more of that, and I'm sure the series does more of that later on, but it just felt very plot heavy, and so I just wanted more of that character meat. Because there was so much on the bone there, and I thought it was really interesting. I just felt like they weren't quite serving enough up to me. I was like, the plot's fine, but I want to know the characters. The only other thing I would say is that I thought it's interesting. I was thinking about Transformers because I had said to you that Transformers felt like it was getting away from me because I got confused at who's who. Like, I have face blindness for machines apparently, but I had very big difficulty tracking kind of who was who. Even though they're like, if you're a Transformers fan,
Michael Bay designs, you should be able to figure out who they are.
You'd think so, but still, like some of them I just couldn't quite. There's something about it. It's almost like I needed to hear voices or something. Whereas here, I was everyone's very clear. It helps that when they're in their Power Ranger uniforms, they're very visually distinct, so you can kind of be like, okay, I know who everyone is. When they're in human form, they're very distinct.
Civilians are wearing their colors, so you know.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I have face blindness, so it definitely helped with that. I felt like I could track kind of who they were, and I never felt like I lost the thread. Yeah, so I mean, overall, it was interesting. Would I keep reading? I mean, as you said, it kind of leaves in the middle of we ended at the end of the 8th issue. There's definitely still a cliffhanger, right? So I kind of need to, I guess, resolve the rest of the story. Would I go past that? I would be interested to give it a shot because I felt like it was, again, tantalizing because I feel like there's more that they want to show me, but they're not showing me yet. And so I'm interested to see if that's true or... It's almost like I went on a first date and like I kind of knew about them and like you told me about this person, but like I know that there's more there, but they're not quite showing me yet. They're showing me what they think I want to see, which is the plot and the action and stuff, but I want to see like the deep stuff. I want them to, have a meaningful doc conversation with me, but they're not doing that yet. We're just in the first date phase, so that's kind of how I felt kind of coming into it. I'm curious as the Power Rangers fan. Like, as you said, like, you thought it was kind of a bold choice that they start with the Green Ranger saga. When you read this, like, how did you reset continuity in your head or canon? Because you've read it all. Or it's not you've read it all. You've watched it all. Like, you know where characters go in the quote-unquote prime continuity. This is now this continuity in the comics. So how did you feel about that? And how did you feel they deviated, in both in good ways and in bad ways?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, I like that they didn't decide to make a comic that was basically mirrored the show, where you had basically, here's the monster of the issue, and they have their little, like, learn the lesson of the day, defeat the monster, kind of, because the show is very by numbers. It's very repetitive in that sense, right? For the 40 years of the show, it followed a very specific, very same formula, and I like that they kind of deviated for a much massive kind of overarching story of it all, which is excellent. I think it's something Power Rangers needed for a very, very long time. You would get sensitive to that in the show with, again, like the 5-part miniseries with the Green Ranger saga, stuff like that, and the show would take liberties at times when they would step away from always using the Japanese footage and be more original for how they want to translate some of the stuff, right? So it's still some good shows, but so I like it breaks out of that mold, and I think it's something that is super important. I also liked how the comics medium allows you to make a lot of the villains and even the Putty Patrol more haunting, more scary. Like, here are these clay creatures who are going to smother you like no tomorrow. There's actually really good issues in Go Power Rangers. They're a really good job. Like, like some of the putties are metamorphs, and they're posing as humans, and then they transform into these scary putties, and they're chasing these kids through the dark hallways of the school and stuff like that when Rita first attacks. Like, and because the putties are like goofy looking guys in gray costumes in the show, right? And sketch shows you're not supposed to take them seriously. So like the fact the comic can make these guys legit and scary, like Finster. He's well, yes, my queen, I make this cool, and you put him in the oven, and he pops out the monster, and here you go. But now he's more cold and calculated, and you get to dig into his backstory and some stuff you see very much later. The comic digs into at some point in the series, what it meant to be this teenager that's now thrust into this role of heroism. The actual relation happens to the cities that they're involved with and the battles that happen. So you get to see some parents for some of the Rangers you saw in the first 8 issues here. Like, Scorpina shows up inside Tommy's house and says, hey, you better come with me, or maybe I'll kill your mother instead. Like, that's super dark and haunting, right? That's the kind of stuff you could not do in the kids show, right? So to take kind of big swings like that and come like, screw this, I'm grabbing you, I got to help her out of here, we're going to go to the field and fight. I'm not going to have you wreck my house and attack my mom. So it does deal with a lot of those kind of heavier, more personal issues that you, like, if you think about the show, makes sense, right? So Kyle does a really good job kind of planting the seeds of kind of really digging bigger picture in what kind of happens into it. And then you talk about, not seeing how Tommy progresses into the White Ranger at some point. So there is a portion where Jason, Zach, and Trini, the actors, leave the show for personal reasons and whatever, right? And they bring in 3 new characters with Adam, Aisha, and Rocky, right? And the twist is the other Jason, Zach, and Trini go on a peace conference to go for NATO, right? So they want to make the world better, but they can't do it while being superheroes, right? So that's their commitment. So they leave and the team and do that. That's how they write the story. In the comics, though, they do a total massive twist on what that means. I won't spoil it for you in case you go down that road, or if anyone that's listening is curious. But there's a huge twist there that keeps them as key characters and cogs within the greater universe of the comics, which is a very kind of, it's just as a take that makes a lot of sense. They still use this kind of same storyline, but with a twist. So it's really well done in that sense. So I applaud that. I would say that you have Kyle Higgins' run. If we kept going a few issues, you do get the payoff at the end with the Lord Draken piece, which sets up, which leads us towards Shattered Grid. Shattered Grid obviously is a massive geek fest of characters from all kinds of seasons. So from someone hardcore like me, there's so many Easter eggs and characters that got brought in and out of the storyline. That's just a feast on the eyes, and it does give you that mix of just above and beyond the Mighty Morphin characters, even though they're kind of the stars of the show. There's plenty of other things to go around. And then Ryan Harrow, I think, takes over for quite a while afterwards. And I think Melissa Flores is given the reins to kind of finish things off at the end of the 130 issue run or whatever it is. But they don't land the total ending. Once everything's said and done, like Darkest Hour, I think is the final storyline, because right now, and then they've rebooted to a new series called Power Rangers Prime. Got that one issue from BMV.
Oh, yeah.
that series hasn't, like, it's cool, but I don't think it's gonna take fire, to be honest. It's I applaud for trying something different. It's not Mighty Morphin, it's a whole new thing, but it's not quite going. And then the last kind of story arc, I wish Kyle came back, or if Ryan continued, because I don't feel that she really, it was one of those similar to Fall of House of X and Powers of 10, right? The Krakoa era it was a mess. Like, everything was all over the place. You couldn't keep track of who was who, what was doing what the purpose was of anything. Same idea, right? It was just this, they were trying to throw all these things kind of together last minute and make this kind of big grandiose ending thing, and they just really didn't, unfortunately, land. So it is kind of too bad. Like, you could read from this the end of Shattered Grid and you can stop and be happy. It's like having the first 10 years of MCU. You can go from here to end, you can watch nothing else. Like, you can be happy with this era of the book. So, I would say that that's something that, and there's some totally good stuff post Shattered Grid for sure, but even Zordon, they do some really cool stuff with Zordon, and they go deeper into it, like it's floating hand in a tube for all these things. So they talk about Eltar and what his history is all about, and how Lord Zed was created. We dive so much deeper into Rita. She's always known as this, I got a headache, screaming crazy bat lady on the moon, right? But no, she has like such great character depth, and there's really good kind of like showing her backstory issues that they dive into elsewhere, and they do a lot of cool, like, introduce some new characters that never existed in the show before. That was really cool. So I know I'm jumping all over the place, and it's above and beyond the 8 issues, but in terms of stuff the series does really well, it really kind of with people being thirsty for anything really good Power Rangers, this really scratched that itch, because this was released over a time where I don't even know what series was out. Like, there was some pretty poor TV content. Ninja Steel, I think, was a series that was out at the time, and it was terrible. There's really a lot of bad versions of the show post, like, RPM, I would say. But it's just the comics were a really good job in filling that kind of void of having some Power Ranger good stuff, even at the time when the Lightning Collection which was a 6-inch collectible line of figures. They introduced a number of really cool characters that were only based in the comics, so you kind of got that introduced. They were introduced in this mobile game called Legacy Wars, so they did lean on the comics to kind of reinvigorate the brand as much as possible, because it was like kind of a big hit when it first hit. Again, like, same as the Ultimate Universe, same as Absolute Universe for DC, like having Ultimate Power Rangers, I think did spark it up for the fan base for a while. But I think, just like everything else, it had its shelf life, and it petered out after time, which was unfortunate.
I'm curious, because obviously you're a big Red Ranger guy. I mean, you very much have like leaned heavily into the Red Ranger of everything. You have all the Red Ranger figures. Like, you are, if anyone ever thinks of you in Power Rangers, Red has to come to mind. So I'm curious, like, I always as a kid liked Red Ranger as well, and Green was cool, and then you read this book and it feels very much that Higgins loves Green Ranger almost to the detriment of everyone else, and very much is putting Green Ranger forward as he's my main character. Like, everyone's there, it's an ensemble book, but like, make no mistake, it's a Tommy book more than anything else, and I'm not upset about that. I mean, he does a good job writing them, but I'm curious how you felt, because again, my memories of the show is it's an ensemble, and that's not really how the book necessarily is written, at least in the first 8 issues, because it's very much Tommy focused. So I'm curious how you feel about that as someone who's, again, Red Ranger for life, and yet you have this book that revitalizes the brand and tells some really good stories, but very much is, and maybe I'm wrong with my interpretation, but it feels like it's very much a Green Ranger book.
No, you're very right. Like, Kyle and JDF were very tight in real life, right? So that was a big part of it, and their partnership is super tight. Obviously, like, Lord Draken, who is the big bad that we get to eventually, and then leads to Shattered Grid storyline. Like, he's this evil version of Tommy, right? So, and look, Green Ranger fever took over Power Rangers at the time, right? Like, everyone pivoted very much to him, and he became this very polarizing character, and to the point when, they were following the Japanese footage at the time, they removed the Green Ranger from the series with the Green Candle, another great kind of mini-series, right? And here Tommy loses powers, and people lost him. You can't get rid of Tommy. What are you doing? Yeah, and so that's why they came back as a White Ranger, because you couldn't lose that character. He transcended everybody else, even in Mighty Morphin, to the point where when they replaced Jason with Rocky to me is one of the worst Red Rangers ever, because they had to have someone who wasn't another possible alpha male in the cast to be someone who'd be probably at odds with Tommy, right? Like Jason and Tommy, find ways to get along. The actors at the time weren't huge on it because he was leader, and now this guy comes in and becomes Mr. Popular and then soups him out, right? Mm-hmm. So they had to make Rocky a bit of a dipstick because, and the white guy the leader, because it was all Tommy. So I know the book being heavy Tommy focused doesn't entirely surprise me. It kind of tracks with what happened in the show and how the fandom sees him and stuff like that. And it's a very high percentage, I believe, of the fandom that really appreciates and loves Tommy. There's very few who are kind of like, oh, this guy again. But, there's no... I think as the series goes on, and then, especially in even the Go-Go book, before Tommy gets introduced, because Go-Go goes back to kind of the... not full origin story, but goes back to the beginning, pre-Green Ranger saga. So that gives you a good kind of taste of what those characters were all about before Tommy gets in the way, so to speak. So that's a good read if you want to dive into their versions of these characters a bit more. And as the series goes on, you got 2 books going, then they're able to kind of focus a bit more. But yeah, for Higgins' run, it is fair to say that Tommy is the king of the castle, and he is very much a centralized, kind of polarizing figure for a lot of stuff that they do.
I mean, and it does make sense because, again, like, as someone who was a fan of the show, I remember Green Ranger, and obviously Jason David Frank, was very involved with Power Rangers the longest, right? Like, longer than anyone else in any cast, so it kind of makes sense that character, retroactively would be used to kind of not take over, but be a backbone of the narrative. And it's not like it doesn't work, because it makes sense to, like, well, how do you suddenly turn around from this guy being an enemy to an ally? And the show never really got the chance to be... It couldn't be as deep into it as Higgins can go. So he's able to kind of say, well,
absolutely,
what is the trauma that Tommy would be dealing with, having been manipulated like this? What is it like for everyone to, learn to trust this guy? So I do like that aspect. Again, the character work is what I'm really here for. So I really like those aspects of kind of seeing what trauma Tommy went through, how he's trying to see his way through that, reaching out to, Kimberly, becoming, friendly with her, trying to understand how he could have a place here when he's always kind of been a loner and been alone. So I really, again...
And you have Rita whispering in his ears and giving him self-doubt during this whole process, right? Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And which I very much liked. And again, that was one of those things where if people in fiction just spoke about their feelings, there'd be no problems. In comparison, like, because if he just said, like, I'm having visions of Rita, like, everyone would be like, oh, we should probably look into that. But because it's fiction, he has to keep it to himself. But no, I really like that, again, idea. I liked, again, I'm only in the middle of, I guess, the Power Rangers siphoning powers through, I guess, the green crystal or whatever they call it. So now they're all in their own kind of green variations. I'm in the middle of that arc, I guess. That's where, I guess, the end of the 8th issue kind of ends it. But I liked a lot of that part, and in the Red Ranger and the Green Ranger kind of learning to work together when they're on the moon, flying in space in the giant Zord, or I guess not. Is it a Zord? The Green Rangers still count?
The Dragon Zord.
Dragon Zord. Okay.
Dragon Zord.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can't remember all this stuff. I'm like,
Godzilla, man, come on.
Mecha Godzilla. Yeah. So I mean, I like, again, the character beats in there. What I liked about that is you have a plot-heavy thing. They're going into space. They're going to storm the moon base, which is over-the-top crazy.
I save Billy.
Yeah, but at the same time, they kind of cut it back with the humor of, like, can you believe we're flying in space? Like, which is a nice kind of moment to, again, have... They're doing crazy things, but they're still human. They're still kids, and they're still able to recognize that this is batshit. This is crazy. Can't believe we're doing this. So yeah, no, it was definitely an enjoyable read. I did not roll my eyes when you suggested it, because I was like, you know what? I've never read this. I've heard about it. I knew it was going on. Let's give it a shot. So I did like it.
That's good. So what did you think of the art in this, for the most part?
For the most part, I thought it was pretty good. I really liked a lot of the details on when you actually saw the Rangers in their costumes. It actually reminded me a little bit of the movie. That I know that you don't love it, because in the movie they went too armored, right? Like, it looked too much like Iron Man wannabes. But this one felt like, still didn't feel like skin tight. It still felt like it had texture. And so that obviously was a very conscious choice to make it, not seem silly, and make it feel like they were so armored in some way, but not in a way that felt too bulky or like they couldn't actually do the moves. So in general, I thought it was really good. And again, I like the very distinct likenesses to the characters. Besides Billy, I thought that you looked unique enough that they had inspiration from, obviously, the original likenesses, but didn't feel like they were a slave to it in the same way. I think Billy is a tough one to not look like a parody, because I feel like even the actor looked like he stood out more than anyone else. Because there's something about the original Billy actor and what they dressed him in, and the glasses and everything was very specific, that I don't think it could be anything but look just like it. Whereas I think everyone else, I could feel the artist kind of, adding a little bit of license to who the characters were, and not just trying to do likenesses.
That's fair.
What did you think? Because again, you're the guy who knows everything about Power Rangers compared to me. I know nothing. So what did you think about the interpretation, not just of the characters, but of the Zords, and how, the action was portrayed? Because, it's interesting, because when you watch the TV show, like, how much, I would be curious to clock how much of the runtime is just the Zords coming out. Right, like they're all, they're calling the Zords forth, and you have a bunch of the shots of the Zords coming forward and then merging. Like, how much of the show is dedicated just to those kind of glamour bits? But in a comic book, it doesn't quite work that way, right? Like, it's so different in terms of pacing. So something that would take a while to watch, it happens in just like a page turn or a panel flip, or between panels here. So I'm curious how you felt the action of that was kind of portrayed.
Yeah, it's interesting, because, obviously, you look at the show, and, if you literally cut out or focused on the morphing sequence, the Zord sequence, and, like, the canned footage in every single episode, it probably takes up a decent chunk of time,
right?
Or whatever. And you normally have a lot more fighting sequences through an episode, right? Where in this, like, there are... the fighting sequences are very quick, and you're 1 or 2 pages, or there are a few more epic, like, higher skill battles that you kind of see, and it's obviously very hard to do various kind of kung fu action. I feel when you first see the Black Dragon hit and destroy the command center, and their initial battle with him is pretty serious business. It's when, like, you always like seeing the Rangers get their butts kicked a little bit, right? Because the classic thing is, monster shows up, the monster kind of owns them the first time around, they go back, figure some stuff out, and come back again and beat them. But having the dragon kind of constantly win for a bit until they finally figure out at the end, okay, he's just this big robot, we can work around, there's a hatch on the back of his head or whatever. And they solve the thing. And I think that, like, them and their suits look really good, the mecha looked really good, when they were not morphed. In some cases, or some of the drawing, like Tommy's face looks really long. Like some of the faces were kind of off in certain panels. Not all of them, but it's hard for an artist, right? Because you have to be kind of able to draw people and monsters and robots, and there's a lot of different things. Very cool specific weapons. And it's always cool to see their interpretation of what the morphing sequence is. We're going to combine the power blaster and shoot with our big energy beam. So, it's similar to the show, but they take some licenses. Like, them, making everyone a quasi-Green Ranger by using that kind of power hack, a very original idea. Nothing that ever happened in the show ever before, never will again, right? So, and the whole series is full of really cool ways of how they tap into the morphing grid and do some cool stuff with their powers. Like, there's an issue down the line where Jason and Trini completely swap, so he becomes a yellow Super 2 Tiger Ranger, she becomes a red Tyranno Ranger. Total swap of powers there. So that was kind of cool to see at some point. So they do a lot of fun stuff with that throughout the series, and I like that they kind of take big swings with it and kind of try and do stuff that's new and different, for sure.
I do like that, they lean into some of the stuff, like, as you said, like having the morpher, like having that in front of them and the kind of playing with that effect, I thought was nice. And again, not something I necessarily would have thought that they would have leaned into it as much. And I thought that, they have to, right? But like, how do you do that in a way that is visually compelling and still interesting? And so I did feel like they found ways to do that. I was just looking at something. Let me just check the panel.
They even do it every issue, which is nice too, right? Like they're just morphing, they're not. Like sometimes they make it a big spectacle. Other times it's just like, let's just go, let's keep it going.
No, absolutely. I don't remember the show enough. Was her moon base always look like a nightclub outside out the front?
Yeah.
That is so funny.
100%.
No, I had a question.
Classic, yeah.
When I'm reading, I was reading, a version of the deluxe edition hardcover, and so there's the prologue. Was the prologue originally a free comic book day issue, or like where was that? It was okay. Because I was curious because I'm like, it's not the first issue. So like, where are we getting this? Or
issue 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they did that for free? They just put it out on free comic day?
I know it was issue 0. I'd have to maybe double check if it was a FBC book, but I know there was an issue 0 that was quick before the actual issue 1. And they had this long-running cover thing with like the characters holding the helmets, like all throughout the series, which are really cool. Like if I had a collection of all those covers throughout, that would be kind of maybe cool to have. But they were really good with. I know those hardcovers have that as their main cover throughout the thing. But those are some really beautiful kind of covers that I've gone through. Now, did you feel as you go from issue like what was it 4, right? Where here's this black dragon character, he's about to wreak some havoc, but then you jump to issue 5 and you decide to do this backstory thing that you liked with Zack being tempted by Rita, but did it throw you up when, whoa, did I miss an issue here all of a sudden because we went to a totally different place all of a sudden in the middle of the read?
It's interesting. No, I did not feel that way. But I think I'm just so used to flashbacks in general in comics and just kind of throwing them in. Like, I don't know, there's been a bunch of books I've read lately that have kind of had that narrative device that it didn't throw me off as much as maybe I thought it would. It's interesting. I feel like that type of thing would be more disruptive if you were reading it monthly than if you're reading it all at once. Because I think if you're reading it all at once, it's just another chapter, right? But if you're reading it monthly and you're waiting for the next part of it, and then you get to that, I think it would throw you off more. Because you're like, well, hold on, I was ready for the next big thing. Why am I doing a flashback chapter? Whereas reading it all at once, I think, makes it less offensive in terms of pacing. I was just flipping through, so a couple things. One thing, when they're doing all the different morphing, I was looking at all the different versions of it, and there's some where like you have a split of the character both in armor form and in regular form as they're holding it up, and like again, I like that they were playing with how different visual ways to represent that, because it's ostensibly silly, like they're just yelling out what they're doing and but they're making it cool, making it interesting. It did remind me that as a kid, I don't know why, there's something so cool about Green Ranger and his flute. I can't explain. Something about that like visual as a kid always was very arresting. I don't know why that works. I don't know, and like it works still here because you're kind of like, well, that's cool, but I don't know why, just the Green Ranger holding up a flute is cool at all, but it is, and I don't know if you can tell me why.
The Green Ranger had that's what made him so cool. The guy was big golden shield. He had the sword of darkness. He was able to command his dragon mecha with a flute. Like, it was just, sure, go for it, right? Like, and it's kind of these cool zany Japanese things that, people, in Western culture just fall in love with, because he's super cool. Like, no one in North America, like, no American studio would ever thought it to do something kind of cool and zany like that, right? So it just kept hitting on every level. Even like, I think there's one panel where you can see even like these green glowing music notes as he's playing it to indicate, it's music, right? So I thought that was a nice little touch on the art there, right? Be a cool original art panel to own or something, having that little piece. But yeah, and you'll remember that do 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 do, right? You'll always remember that kind of hum in your head, right? I have a beautiful like Mint Box Legacy Dragon Dagger. It's also like a really cool like weapon and toy to double down with. It so absurd, it works. Like, it's one of those things, there's probably no logical explanation why, people joke, how can he play a flute with a mask on, like, there's lips on the mask, it's fine, because we're probably with the man.
I hadn't even thought of that, now it's ruined.
And I wrecked it for you.
Oh, you brought reality in, and now it's going to bug me. One thing I did find was interesting, and I don't remember this about the original, is that so when you have the Megazord, there's a few shots in the first couple issues where the faceplate reminded me so much of Optimus Prime, and I was like, was that intentional? Was it always like that, and I just never noticed it, or was that specific to like the artist's interpretation?
No, that's the OG Megazord. It's very much Mecha Japan. There have been tons of different designs. Some have faceplates, some have lips. It's all over the place as every season kind of passes you by. So I think it might be one of the reasons why that is very popular, because it does have some familiarity with Optimus. I think it has a very I think what made this, because I think that they originally tried to bring Power Rangers over to the West a couple of seasons before this one, and it didn't quite work out. And for whatever this one with the dinosaurs and the suits were very clean and simple. Everything just kind of worked for it, and it became a perfect storm for the popularity of the series and the end of it all, right? You had some cool stories, you had some cool characters. Like even the beat in the Dark Dimension with Goldar and Billy. Like usually in the Dark Dimension, a lot of that, if you remember the show, like it was either Jason in there or Tommy in there, and Goldar was trying to always hunt him to death, right? Like, and to have someone like Billy be a twist in there, and kind of and Goldar is in chains because he's failed his Empress for the last time, and Billy playing it smart and going like, I can't beat you hand to hand, but like, listen, if you want to like, this Black Dragon dude's taking your position as her, Commander Riker over here. What if I get out of here and kick his ass for you, and then we'll deal with it later, kind of thing. Like, yeah, okay, Billy, you're cool. Get out of here, Like, it was kind of cool to have, and I think Goldar he becomes a bit of a softie later on in the series on the show too. But it's kind of cool to see, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of angle on that beat, and having kind of Billy in that situation and getting himself out of a sticky mess where, I think in the show it just would have been, I'm going to destroy you, right? So it really kind of, you lose a lot of the cheesy 90-ness. Like, it's still there to a degree, but, the way the characters are way more evolved than they ever were probably in the show on many levels, right? Because you have that time to really flesh into it, look at more backstories, have different encounters that aren't just these quick puncture, oh, I sucked again, and we teleport away type of situations, right? And that's the benefit of losing the routine of the show, is you're able to focus more on bigger picture, more meaningful battles. Like, why are we fighting outside for the sake of, I want to, put some poison in the water reservoir or something to, rule the world. So, yeah.
When I was sitting down to read the 8 issues we were going to talk about, I had the year 1 deluxe edition kind of queued up, and didn't realize I looked at it, I was like, 500 pages. Like, what is in this thing? And then like 150 pages is basically just covers, and which is not surprising because it's a very cover-friendly IP, but it definitely blew my mind a little bit just how many there were. So when you were buying it in singles, were you buying the original covers? Were you getting variants each time? Like, or how many did you have of each one? Like, this was a very collectible type of thing because, Power Rangers would come back in a big way with a comic that was going to be taken seriously. So when you're buying those original singles, were you just buying, the regular covers, or what were you buying? What were you seeing in your collection?
Yeah, no, I ended up, I wasn't trying to overthink it. I just bought the standard covers for the most part. There was one super awesome one in particular, and maybe I would have scored that. I do regret not getting all the helmet ones in hindsight, but I don't know. I think I might only collected in singles the first 12 for sure, maybe 24. I can't remember how far I got. And eventually I decided, okay, I'm just going to do it to the trades. And then I did the trades for a long time. And then when I found these gorgeous hardcovers existed, I stopped at that. And from Shattered Grid onwards are pure these hardcovers. So I have to make maybe a choice one day. Do I want to get deluxe volumes like 1 and 2 of Mighty Morphin and some of the Go-Go ones? Maybe not, because I have them in trade, so I'm fine. I have all the content. But from a uniform kind of bookshelf perspective, and then the OCD of it all, what makes it look nicer on the shelf, right? So
for sure,
the double dip on that content we'll see. Yeah.
And as you said, like you've had while he was alive, the actor who played Tommy has signed your stuff.
Yes.
And you said Higgins. Have you met him as well?
Yeah, so Higgins I met at a fan expo. Chase David Frank I met twice, technically. I met him once at a meet and greet that was in Niagara one year. So a couple action figures signed by him. And then he was at a fan expo with Kimberly, actually. But I wouldn't meet Kimberly, because I met Tommy before, so I was cool with that. So I did go to meet Kimberly, because when I went to Morphicon back in 2014, maybe it was, I got to meet a ton of cast throughout many series there, and Kimberly was the only one I hadn't actually met from the OG cast, so that kind of completed that package of it all, so to speak. So it was cool to meet that.
Now, when it was first on TV, when you were like 14 years old, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is great!" Like, what level or how deep was your fandom at the time? Like, were you buying the toys or buying any of the merchandise? Like, what was that like for you at that point in time? Because I guess I'm trying to think. Like '93, the X-Men animated series is out. Spider-Man's not out yet. Transformers is obviously kind of receded at that point. It's not, it doesn't. Even Gen 2 would have been long over at that point.
Yeah, you're just on the cusp of Beast Wars around this time, yeah.
Yeah, because, even Beast Wars would have to wait for Reboot to be... Reboot's the first computer animated show, and that's 94, so we're still a couple years away, right? So I'm curious, these other things that are big parts of your fandom, they're not really active at this point, except for X-Men. So now you have this new thing, Power Rangers. So, again, how deep into merchandise or toys did you go at the time, and how much more have you accumulated over the years?
That's a bold question. So,
and no, my questions were not motivated by your wife asking me to find out just how much there is. That is not. Oh, okay. It's not coming from her.
Thank you. Thank you. So I remember Fox Kids was all the rage at the time, and I think there was a random commercial that had showcase it really quickly, right? It didn't really give you much of anything. You saw these colorful characters, and we were seeing the Megazord, the robot, was a big part of the initial trailer. Oh, this is premiering at some point soon. Cool, that's awesome. I'm curious to kind of see what that's all about. And then I think I missed the initial premiere of the show. So the first episode actually I ever watched was the one with the Pudgy Pig as the monster, right? And it's the most ridiculous look. This guy's massive pig head and this kind of Spartan helmet, really long arms and legs. The whole concept of them when they're at school is this massive food fights, the big selling piece, right? And I'm watching this, and I go, I should hate this. This is so campy and so ridiculous. Whatever. I don't know. Okay. So I watched the first episode, and it's kind of like, huh. That was something, but I always give anything, at least 5-6 episodes or whatever. So then, whatever, I don't know what they did. Maybe they played the first 2 episodes and then they kind of did reruns. I can't remember how it came to be, but I eventually found my way back to the beginning. And yeah, it just whatever it was, just hooked me, hook, line, and sinker. It was so cool to see. I love the designs of the costumes. Again, I love the robots; they were super cool. The action was great. I just was eating it up. Can't even explain what it was, right? And there wasn't I wasn't buying a lot of Transformers at the time. G.I. Joe was in a weird spot. X-Men had some okay figures, really, but it wasn't as much as I loved the X-Men animated series, I wasn't really super into those toys. They just weren't a thing for me at the time, and they weren't really available. So when Power Rangers hit, all this stuff came with it, right? And, I'm a big sucker for if it exists in the screen and you can give me a physical version of it that mirrors in any way, shape, or form, I'm in, right? So when I still have my original 93 Megazord, and everything about it is exactly how it goes in the show. You put it together exactly as just form on the show. It has a cool tank mode. You can raise it up, have your pterodactyl come flip and land on the chest. You can fold the ears for the head. It all exactly is how it should be, and it's smart because that's what kind of kids want. Now this with 2 points of articulation, that kind of sucks, but that's neither here nor there. that's a personal preference, like having my robots with her. Then you had scale figures from, I think they were an 8-inch figure of all the Rangers, so I got all of those. There was automorphing, the flippy head guys. Everyone had the flippy head guys, right? The motorcycles that they had, the sidecars. The monsters were few and far between here and there because, you know, everyone wanted the heroes and stuff like that. The poor girls tend to show form every now and again. But I think, like, Kimberly... you know, she's the GOAT for Pink Rangers. Everyone loves Kimberly. I think in the entire fandom and series of Power Rangers, it's Kimberly, and the only other Pink Rangers that ever come close to her level of popularity and awesomeness is Jen from Time Force, because she is actually a superb character. Erin Cahill, I met her at Morphicon. What a gem to meet. One of the greatest, nicest people that actors that I met at that show. But yeah, if you were to hold the fandom, it's Kimberly or Jen, probably for any super hardcore fan. 1A, 1B, I would argue, to anyone's the death.
To the death.
I'll die on that hill. To the death, right? So I think Kimberly was popular enough. Everyone had that 90s crush on Amy Jo Johnson, right? So I think she just sold pretty well. Trini probably got the short end of the stick of anything else. But, you know, I don't know if you know, but, like, you know, the Yellow Ranger in the Sentai series was a boy.
Oh, no,
right?
I don't.
It was a gender swap, yeah.
Interesting.
That was a gender swap for the North American series. And that happens from time to time. With most Yellow Rangers, it's very common that happens throughout the various series. So that's another kind of fun fact. Walter Jones, on one hand, only 4 fingers.
Really?
He's legit missing a finger the entire time. You never notice. Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm curious, as you said, like there was stuff that came out before we got it big in the West. Have you gone back and experienced that type of stuff, like the original kind of Japanese stuff?
So I do have some DVD sets of the original Japanese series. Like Zoo Ranger is Zoo Ranger, I think it's called. It's a proper pronunciation for Mighty Morphin. So I do have various series in Japan. Have I watched anything pre-Mighty Morphin? There's one in particular I do want to watch. It's called Jetman. This is my Amazon wish list, actually. And that was it's known as a very popular, kind of very hardcore, kind of quote-unquote adult Sentai series, right? Okay. So there's various versions of Sentai there, like mature, hardcore, whatever. So there's stuff I know about, but I didn't get into like Japanese Power Ranger stuff, like watching it religiously, until way, way later. When did I get married? I got married in 2008.
Someone's listening to this and like, wait a minute, this Power Rangers fan is married?
Yeah, right?
Dreams do come true.
When I got married, yeah, right? Whatever, the series is called Geki Ranger in Japan. It was Jungle Fury in North America. The Japanese version was way better. And in some cases, you know, one of those things where, you know, the book is always better than the movie. Sometimes the Japanese version is always better than the North American adaptation in some cases. But Geki Ranger is my first kind of jump into Sentai. And I watched Sentai pretty religiously for a number of seasons until it hit... Gokaiger was a big anniversary season, like 30... Like, Japanese was ahead by, like, 15 years in terms of... Because, like, Sentai started, like, in 79 when I was born, right? That's how old Sentai is, right? Oh, God! So they're way ahead in terms of any type of anniversary type of thing. So I think they're close to... Yeah. But then, yeah, even the Japanese stuff has kind of gone off the rails a little bit, where some of the concepts are way out of... left field for certain things. So there's been some interesting stuff to watch. I haven't watched a lot of the predates, but I did watch a lot of Japanese original footage. And sometimes it's hard to watch like the Japanese one first and then see what North America does, and then it's hard not to compare the two, right? And does that make you judge or view the North American one like differently at all? I don't know. So I think it's almost best to go the other way and watch the North American version first and go back to the Japanese and then compare it that way, because I don't know, you know, what would affect your experience more, I suppose, is an interesting way to, if you're interested in doing that kind of thing.
Is it, so if someone reads the comics and then tries to go watch the show, do you think that's tonally too much of a about-face?
It'll be a much different, like the show is so 90s, right? It's oozing 90s slapstick comedy, tones, dialogue, like all the kind of stuff that they've done it multiple times where they've tried to reboot Mighty Morphin. Like, I think there was this weird stint pre-Samurai where they tried to do, like, it was Mighty Morphin, but they added these weird VFX to it. And I think there's something even right now where they're doing like YouTube shorts of certain parts of episodes or something. I don't know. They're doing something now. I couldn't quite catch what it was. But yeah, I don't know. If I showed my kids it today, would they be like, "Dad, this is so fucking lame"? I don't know what their thought process might be. Like, they've watched more current versions of Power Rangers, like Dino Charge. They've seen, like, there were a few series that were current that would have been their first at the time that they quasi enjoyed, but they never really hooked them the same way I did. But they also started watching it when they were a bit older. They didn't hop in when they were young for it to kind of captivate them as a young audience. I was the weirdo in grade 9 who suddenly got obsessed with these colorful characters, but I just love toys and wacky stuff. So it all gets kind of superheroes, and this was this cool new thing that I just Turtles were a thing. They make a guest appearance in Power Rangers in Space eventually, on the Turtles live action show for a bit.
Oh wow!
Apparently they can ride space surfboards in space without any spacesuits. That was kind of an interesting twist.
I believe it.
Don't think about it. Yeah.
Did you ever have your kids try and read the comics?
No, not these ones. No, not that bad. Yeah, it's from the trades.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I was thinking about it as I read it. Like, I have context. I have, like, I know, as you said, like, I know the Green Ranger saga. I may not have watched it in 30 years, but I know it, and it has enough of an imprint that when I see aspects of it, I'm like, okay, I get that. It did make me wonder why, if someone who came into this cold, how they would pick up on it. It did also make me wonder, does anyone pick up anything cold anymore? Like, probably not. If you're at a comic book store and you see Power Rangers, you probably know what it is in some way. It's probably not a blind buy, but it did make me wonder, like, if I, gave the first 8 issues to my son, I'm curious what he would think about it. I mean, this is a kid who's right now mainlining Iron Man comics from, like, the 70s to the 2010s, so would he get more out of it? I think he probably would enjoy it, but it did make me wonder, like, how much context matters. And as you said, kind of picking this pivotal moment that most people, casuals, will have a reference point for, I think does make sense, but it does make me feel like, how would someone who's not a casual feel, who's an actual newbie? Again, I don't know if they exist, besides if you find just, like, kids and throw it at them. But it did make me wonder if it does enough of laying the groundwork for those people.
Yeah, no, that is a very good question. And sometimes I try to read some of the chapters throughout the whole run in that kind of lens. It eventually gets to a point where this whole universe is its own thing. Like, you're past trying to copy anything from the show. Like, you've moved past it, and this has become a world in on itself, right? And then you're good with it. Like, you're 50 issues in, and you're comfortable. You know what's going on. They'll throw things at you that are great fan service, right? But it's also like, if you don't know, you don't get any of this, right? Like, I don't think you appreciate the grandness of the Shattered Grid story if you don't know so much Power Rangers, right? So I think Higgins does his best to try and only take certain characters, bring them in, develop them enough for you to maybe pique some interest and maybe be curious about them and maybe check out, their season or show at some point, or maybe their design looks cool to you and you want to kind of dig into that. Because Shattered Grid does go on for a long time, and it does touch a lot of different things. But yeah, no, it is a very interesting question to understand. There's not a lot of really great, like, jumping on points, to be honest. Like, you have, from this until the end of Shattered Grid is kind of one era. You can kind of be a good starting on point is reading. Maybe you read Go first, obviously, almost as a prequel. And that would almost prepare you better to jump into Mighty Morphin, because at least there's been more context behind all of it and the world build thing before kind of jumping in with 2 feet. Because, I think maybe where they started with this is this initial run of issues attracted the hardcore fan, and they're thinking, okay, how do we bring in more that are not hardcore fans? And let's go back and introduce Go to give people a good kind of entry point, and then they can roll in from Go into Mighty Morphin, and that gives them a bit more context to it. Because even like the power transfer episode I was talking about earlier, when Tommy flips eventually from green to white, you bring in Rocky and Maisha. If memory serves me, it all happens just kind of suddenly. They don't really rehash or retell that version of the story in this universe. It just kind of happens, right? And then if it's not something you're familiar with, like, whoa, did I miss something here? Like, why did we suddenly shift? Why did this happen all of a sudden? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But then, as the series moves forward, then you're not worried about trying to connect it anymore after that. You're just enjoying the ride, and then you're just learning this universe, and then, your own curiosity will take you where it takes you.
No. Okay. Well, I think we both have a baseball game to watch, so I'm going to let us break off, because Go Jays Go, although by the time this is out, it's also possible that by the time this episode actually airs, that they've already been knocked out of the playoffs, so it's the magic of baseball.
Or the World Series.
Or they're on their way. This was a fun experiment. Am I interested in reading more? I think the answer was yes. I definitely want to at least close out kind of the arc that I'm in the middle of. I thought it was interesting. Sorry, I have a question about original trades. Did they just put four issues in each trade before? So that makes sense for the first arc.
I forgot about that.
So the first arc, I think that makes more sense. But the second arc, you're literally in the middle. Like, it's not over. So that felt like a weird choice, because when you mentioned it, like it ends on a cliffhanger, I didn't think it meant ends in the middle of a story. Like there is a difference to me, right? Like cliffhanger, fine. In the middle of the story is a little bit interesting. It took me back. I wasn't ready for that, but I am interested to read, kind of fill out the year. I guess that first full year, and maybe I'll go to Shattered Grid. It did make me think that I won't understand the context. I won't get a lot of the fan service. It'll be like someone reading Spider-Verse and not knowing who all the variants of Spider-Man are. I think that's what my experience will be like that. Like I kind of get it, and they all look familiar, but like not enough that I have any real understanding. But if it's written well, it won't matter, and it will still work, right? So. I'm curious to give that a shot. So this was fun. This was a fun diversion. I like that we decided to do this when Nate wasn't here. I don't know if that was by design or not, but I hope he enjoys this episode. And so thank you so much, Paul, for having me read this. For those who are listening at home, you can email us at comicshenanigans@gmail.com, rate us on Apple Podcasts, listen to us on Apple Podcasts, and listen to us on Spotify. And the next couple of episodes, we have an episode coming up soon with Marcus Toe. We have Pat Olive coming back with Chuck Austin, and we have an episode with Ron Friends coming at some point in the next month. And then I think one other guest I cannot confirm yet, but exciting. There's a Daredevil book that's coming out soon. That's all I'll say. Not a comic, but an actual book. And the author of that book might be on the show soon. So that's as much of a tease as I will give. Thank you again for listening to this episode. And Paul, once again, for having me actually read Power Rangers. You did it.
Try something new, right?
That's
After the Blue Jays. Back to action.
It was exciting for me just because, as I said, I'm usually the one giving you and Nate something that you've never read before. So it was very nice to kind of twist that on its head, and suddenly I have to read something that I've never read before. So thank you for putting me through this. All right.
Well, and at least you had a good time with the experience. So I appreciate that. It wasn't like, oh my god, I can't even trek through this. Like read She-Hulk level bad.
No. Well, that hurts right there. But no, in the X-Men parlance, I did survive the experience. So thank you so much for that.
Perfect. How many dragons or out of 10 are you going to give this?
I mean, after you dropped Red She-Hulk, I think I have to say 8, right?
Yeah, you do.
How many would you give it? You're the aficionado.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, maybe we should have read to the end of the story arc necessarily. But it was cool to kind of go back. I haven't read this since probably buying it at the time, so it's been a while. So to kind of go back to it and bringing back the memories of reading it the first time, I'm solid. 8.5, 9 for me. I think it was really cool to kind of go back to this and reinvigorate kind of my love for the brand. To enjoy some good stuff, considering where the brand's currently at. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I will let you go, I promise. But it did make me think of, I've been reading a lot of other kind of 80s, 90s brands lately, because there's a Captain Planet comic that's actually pretty good by David Pepose.
Thundercats.
Well, David Pepose alone is doing Space Ghost, He's doing Speed Racer, and he's doing Captain Planet. So, like, I think he's just trying to find as much IP as possible and just put it out there. But he's doing a great job, and they're really enjoyable. And yeah, you mentioned Thundercats, obviously Transformers in the G.I. Joe universe is really big right now.
Universe, yeah.
So it's interesting how much IP is kind of coming back in comic format right now and really doing well. So you'd think that they would try and take advantage of kind of bringing Power Rangers back again to really kind of, because there's so many other IPs being resuscitated right now.
100%, yeah. I think they just got to get the right talent behind it at this point. Get the right idea, the right talent. They have a clean slate to do whatever they want with it. They don't have to, retread old ideas. They don't have to reuse Japanese stuff. They really can. You just need the right guy, the right kind of, and you need the right passion for the brand to really make it work. And yeah, I think you could see a fun resurgence if they do it right, for sure.
So what you're saying is you really want that job?
Sign me up. Sure.
What,
do it.
What would you do? If they handed you the keys tomorrow, they're like, you know what? Give us a pitch. What do you got?
So I would hire the studio that did Voltron Legendary Defender, which was an amazing kind of reboot of the Voltron franchise. You had great colorful characters that were the pilots, which had great action when they were the people in suits, and the mecha battles were unbelievable, what they could do with that animation, right? Versus, again, the same canned footage over and over that you would see. So I think move to animation versus live action, I would kick it off with some version of Shattered Grid. Not the same exact storyline. I would tweak it a bit and have it end differently, and then have whatever this new Power Rangers universe being springboard out of Shattered Grid. So coming with a bang, something massive for the hardcore fan, something fun that's going to be this big epic adventure, and then or even have like an animated series that leads into the movie of Shattered Grid, and then post Shattered Grid roll it into kind of the next kind of generation of things afterwards. Would be my take. Bring back some original cast to be the voice actors, like I had mentioned earlier, on the animation side of things. So I think the live action part of it, I know it's part of the charm of Power Rangers for sure, but I think maybe that's run its course. And I think one cool way to kind of maybe surge it back would be at least give them that shot. I think ultimately, try it, see if it cooks, and go from there. And also and reinvent the wheel and not do the same monster of the week type of scenario. Have long arching stories, crazy villains, big stakes. None of this kind of repetitious boom, 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 boom every episode. And I think most medium is kind of leaning towards that. You see what they're doing with X-97, all these different things. They're doing more big, bombastic, complete stories. So I think that's kind of the trend you need to see in current state for it to work. For sure.
All right. Well, thanks again. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.